Hello, welcome back and welcome in. My name is Nikki Wheeler. If you're interested in gaming, go subscribe to my other channel and follow my Twitch to see my gaming live. Now, let's start this video. Today, I will be discussing Chris Daughtry, best known for his band Daughtry. Chris was a contestant on the hit show American Idol in 2006 for season 5. He may not have won the season, but he did make it far enough for people to recognize him for what he is worth, and there is nothing short of talent in him. Chris and his band released their self-titled debut album only 6 months after the finale of American Idol. Daughtry has a lighter touch not just in his delivery but also in his songs, which are far hookier than most pop grunge. And if he's compared to Nickelback, he's a far more appealing frontman with a greater vocal range and far more sensitivity in his singing. Chris's way with a hook and empathetic emoting are placed far up in the unapologetically professional mix on the album, which is designed not to cross over to the pop market because everybody involved knew that he would garner pop fans because of his now TV celebrity status. But to the rock market, everybody involved made sure not to mess with the guitars and to indulge in the powerful ballads. The resulting album may play strictly by the rules of mainstream post-grunge, and it may never achieve the sweat and grit that previous rock bands do even after they've been cleaned up in the studio. But it follows the modern rock blueprint exceedingly well, creating drama in its pedestrian moments. It also helps that the songs are sturdier than most pop grunge, with big anthemic hooks on the choruses and verses that are lively enough not to bore. Daughtry didn't draft in a bunch of pros to write the songs like a lot of debuting artists. Each tune bears a writing credit by Daughtry, and most of them are solo credits. Listening to these songs, it would be easy to mistake them for work of a seasoned pro. They not only follow the template of post-grunge well, they do it with better hooks and a commercial flair lacking from bands like Fuel and Shinedown, which are both inspirations of Chris. It wasn't too long before the rock stars of Daughtry released their second album, Leave This Town. After the early 90s, rock and roll was considered serious business, and that's a lesson that Daughtry heeded. If they don't manage to have a lot of fun, their single-minded sobriety does mean that they avoid excesses, never succumbing to soul-bearing indulgence or flights of instrumental fancy, which paradoxically turns into their strength. They have nothing on their mind other than making black and white modern rock, and they do so efficiently on Leave This Town, a sophomore album that every bit as satisfying as the first. I think the album could use some more hard rock elements or songs that make it just as good as the first, but some of my favorites were Call Your Name and You Don't Belong. The great thing about certain songs is that they can mean something completely different depending on the situation you're in, and Daughtry allows much more leeway in that regard. Overall, Leave This Town isn't quite as studio slick as its predecessor, but the 4 other members of Daughtry play with competence, cracking out post-grunge comfort designed to soothe, not surprise. If the album had some more additional hard rock tracks, it would be near ideal. This detail doesn't change the whole picture though. Chris himself was criticized for not having humor, and you can see he tried to add a bit of fun into many tracks even though they are ballads. The amazing melodies, astonishing vocals, great passion, and pure emotion are the main elements that set Leave This Town apart from the debut. Now, for the third album, Break the Spell, Daughtry snaps back to life. They add color back into their desaturated post-grunge records, embracing their lineage as radio-ready rockers. Often, Break the Spell harks back to the glory days of the late 80s when rockers played Golden Gods all for the sake of cameras. Secure in the knowledge, the heavy rotation of MTV or AOR radio would shift millions of CDs. So, with this new record, there's a candid confidence to Daughtry's stride. They're unconcerned with sobriety, and they're happy to have their riffs over-muscled. Content to have every speck of their production sparkle. Chris softened his defining trait as a rocker by dampening his dourness, choosing to dabble in levity, at least as far as surface sonics are concerned. It was actually kind of hard to imagine that the Daughtry of 2006 giving the green light to disco rock on Out of My Head, but here it is a part of a record colored by shellacked harmonies. The song I found most memorable was Renegade. It was an up-tempo number straight out of Bon Jovi's 80s era playbook, on which Daughtry wails on wanting to break out of this town like a renegade. I believe that's an amazing album, which would best be defined as pop rock, which is by no means a downgrade. I think the sound was fitting as the genre was making a comeback, and Chris's voice being lighter in the constant spate of top-of-the-line bridges just makes this album remarkable. Many saw this album as a vapid downgrade to the band because it did have those pop elements, but I am a huge fan of the sound. It reminds me of The Police, Imagine Dragons, and the 2010s Panic at the Disco joined forces. And while that does kind of sound like a weird combo, I imagine it like a pairing you didn't know you need. Now, for the fourth album, Baptized, Chris Daughtry decided to look on the bright side of life. He's happy to alternate between super stylized soft rocks sculpted on a computer and rousing neo-root stomps that bring to mind the insistence of the Lumineers. Anytime there's a power ballad, which is often, the precision is exact. Folk rock may be the fashion, but Chris's blood flows from arena rock, resulting in such an interesting hybrid on Long Live Rock and Roll. It seems like they're not distinguished by the love of post-grunge that made them heavier than their peers throughout their career, but they benefit from being a shade more nimble, ready to thread the new sounds into tracks to avoid being stuck in the past. I've said it many times that bands have to grow with the times, and if the band stayed true to their sound while incorporating new sounds to appeal to a wider audience and gain new followers, there is no harm in changing. Most pop punk and rock genres are struggling in today's world of rap, hip-hop, and pop, so Daughtry treading into new territory to see if it works isn't going to end their career. A lot of original fans are tied between growing with them and being stuck in 2006. This relative lightness makes a big difference. It also helps that the music itself is relatively agile, and ultimately this turned Baptized into one of the best albums he or his band has made. He's updated his sound just enough to stay relevant, but more importantly, he doesn't get in the way of a good tune. Cage to Rattle, the fifth studio album, arrives 5 years after Baptized, by far the longest gap between albums. Daughtry decides to ratchet up their melodic side so strongly that at times they almost seem mellow. The band still leans hard into post-grunge tropes, and Chris sings with his chest, overdriven guitars cleanly growl, and choruses soar. I think the immediate reaction to this album was definitely more distressed because for such a long gap in between the albums, the length of the album was short. After a full listen though, it makes up for it with truly rocking music and leans back into the rock roots and is a full angst and trepidation. To my surprise, the ballads are not as strong on this album, though they are powerful in the way Chris belts his lines. Their biggest moments were always power ballads, so having them quietly accept that these waiting room anthems are their strength results in a record that's cohesive in a way Daughtry rarely achieved in the past. It was way more theatrical than Baptized and left a reflective mindset. The album had the potential to become even better if they added 2 to 4 more songs like Backbone or White Flag. Both of those songs have a kinetic spirit to them. And then the next album is the sixth and final one thus far, Dearly Beloved. The most interesting fact about this amazing record is that it sounds quite different from Daughtry's previous works, and at the same time, you can hear the Daughtry of past albums. And it also contains many awesome and soulful songs, from softer ones like Dearly Beloved, Lioness, Break Into My Heart, and Somebody, to harder songs like Asylum, Evil, and Heavy as the Crown. Even in tracks which don't satisfy me completely, there are some very good moments, such as the atmospheric intro in Desperation, and the tough, heavy instruments of Changes Are Coming. That being said, Dearly Beloved is probably the most mature Daughtry record musically and lyrically, and it showcases both the tremendous Chris's voice and the band's evolution. While the topics in the song may be serious, as a lot of Daughtry's work is, the album was fun and really amusing to listen to. Now, this next part is where I will be ranking the albums. This is going to be a best to worst scale, and I will be taking lyrics, music, and vocal capabilities into consideration. At number 1, I have Dearly Beloved. Number 2 is Cage to Rattle. Number 3 is Baptized. Number 4 is Daughtry. Number 5 is Break the Spell. And number 6 is Leave the Town. I can't say when I actually started following along Daughtry as a band, but I do know going through the albums cohesively again that I followed them for a reason, and the growth they have shown in the near 2 decades of being around, that they improve each and every album in some degree, and there's no denying that insane talent Chris and his band have. Going from a contestant on a talent show to one of the most popular 2000s rock bands is an insane feat, and I applaud them for that. Now, this is where I will end the video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content like this. Comment down below for what I should cover next, and until next time, bye guys.